So today's webinar is all about service packages. We are going to be going through kind of the creation, what's involved, how do they work, where do they tie into other parts of the system as well. Just kind of a general overview of it. There is a lot to service packages and they do tie into different areas of the system. So what I'm trying not to do is to start kind of tangenting off into other areas, trying to focus it just on the service packages side. I may mention this throughout. If you do have any questions about things that kind of come up alongside the webinar today, feel free to give us a ring on support or drop us a ticket just about any of the things that come up today, just to learn more about that specifically. What I'm trying not to do is just make this maybe a 10-hour webinar about service packages that it possibly could be. So yeah, we'll get started. If anybody doesn't know, I'm head of support. I'm Lee, and I'll be taking the webinar today. So just a quick kind of agenda on what we're going to cover today. So we'll be going through kind of an overall overview of service packages themselves, which I'm sure you all kind of expected. Covering things like whether to make packages fixed price or not fixed price, how to create them, all the conditions that come along with that, and all of the encompassing parts of creating it and the levels that come with that. The purpose and benefits of service packages. This may not be a dedicated section to here are all the listed benefits of that, but as I cover different things, what I'll try and do is let you know, guys, let you guys know the benefits of actually doing that part. Then you've got the online booking aspect of it as well. So as a lot of you may know, we have an online booking widget that you can put on your website, and how service packages tie into that, and they are kind of the driving force behind that. So how that works, how to add in a lot of automation when it comes to service packages. You can add them manually onto jobs, but you can also have them be added for you. So it should just be a case of you selecting a type of job from your schedule and the rest is done for you, whether that be job sheets and estimates as well. You then have how service packages and checklists work alongside each other. Again, like I said before, we're going to try and not delve into checklists as a whole, just to focus on what we're here for today, but they do tie in together as well, so we'll have a look at that. When to not use service packages. So sometimes it just may not be the right time to use a pre-packaged set of items and labors, so when to not use them. And then just going through some of the newer features that may have been added in since the conception of service packages, just so that if there's anything that's been added to them that you maybe haven't spotted, or maybe you haven't delved into service packages since you first created them, or whether one of the trainers came out on site and you've not looked at them since then, there may be new things in there that you haven't seen before, so we'll have a look at that. And then when we have kind of gone through everything I've got to go through, we'll open it up to any questions that people have on anything that I've covered, but also anything that you may already have written down to ask me today. So yeah, that's kind of an overview of what today's webinar is going to be. We also, what I want to do is go through the newer features part of this first. So just to cover these things off, and we'll see each of these things as I go through it, but I just want to let you know a few things in here that have been added since it was created. So the ability to add checklists to a service package. So when you add the service package to a job, the checklist goes with it. All of that can be automated, as well as checklists being added elsewhere in the system. Predefined comments. So if with a certain service package you want to say something specific to have it printed on the document, on the invoice that you print out to the customer, or whether it's just an internal note for a tech, or whether it's instructions for your front of house to ask some questions based on that service package and that type of work that's going to be carried out. So you can have those predefined comments rather than having to add them manually. You also have the ability to make packages, estimate packages. This is purely for online booking. Obviously, as you probably already know, you can add service packages to estimates. That's not new. But making a service package for online booking purely as more of an inquiry rather than a booking just allows you to have maybe some more obscure packages that people can say, I'd like you to quote me for this. And it's not so straightforward as booking an MOT. So we need to gauge a bit more information. You maybe need to take some time to quote it up, figure things out, look at Autodata, whatever it may be. So that feature allows you to just be a bit more vague in what they're booking in for. You've also got the age from to, production year from to. Production year has pretty much been there for I think since the beginning, forgive me if I'm wrong, but we added age from to. Obviously, these two things can work in tandem with each other. I would probably recommend using one or the other, but they work in different ways. So obviously with a car, if a car is made in 2020, production year of 2020, then that is its production year. That never changes. It will always have a production year of 2020. Obviously a car may be 4 years old, but it doesn't stay at 4 years old. It gets older and older as time goes on. So what you can do is if you do have certain packages you want to age out of or age into, you can basically say, if a car is between 1 and 4 years old, offer it. Once it's over that, don't bother. So that's the sort of thing that may help, especially with you use production years, people will use them for like aircon gases. Whether you want to age out of that instead of using production year obviously depends on how you want to do it, but there's all sorts of different things that you can do with that and applications that can be used. And then you've got length from and to. So this would be if you guys have ramps that only fit certain lengths of vehicles, or you may have only a certain amount of ramps that can fit longer vehicles, and that allows you to basically offer packages, versions of those packages that if it's a longer vehicle, I want it to be only offered this amount of times on online booking, or it may just be to allow when you're booking it on a job sheet that if it's a longer vehicle, we know that straight away from the certain version of that package that it is. So those are just a few different things that are added, plus the most recent, which is adding linked media to the service package versions. And we'll have a look at all of these things as I go through, but this is the most recent addition to that, where if you've got a certain attachment, a photo, whatever it may be that you want to put onto the service package version, when that's added, the media gets added as well. So you'll have the pictures and attachments, PDFs, maybe instructions or whatever it may be. You've got that there against the package once it's added, rather than having to worry about remembering about it. It will be there automatically. Okay, so yeah, let's have a look at round. So I am going to switch into the system now. It's not all going to be kind of a presentation. I'm going to use the system and show you around in that sense. So just give me a second while I pull that up, which you should be able to see now. Okay, so I'm going to go into this in a lot of detail. A lot of you guys will have already seen packages, you may have created packages, you may be an expert on packages, but what I don't want to do is kind of skim over a lot of the basics, and people who maybe are new to creating service packages are suddenly kind of like, where am I going? Okay, so forgive me if it may be stuff you already know, but I just want to cover everything. Okay, so to find your service packages, in Garage Hive, you have catalogs at the top and service packages under that heading. You also have items and labels under this heading. That is what makes up a service package. So what you may also want to do is make sure you have all the relevant labels and items in your system ready for when you go into creating the package itself. Okay. When you go into the service packages, you'll get a list of all the different things that you've got. I do have different setups. There are some that are fixed price, some that are non-fixed price. Don't be alarmed if there's more than you have in here, and don't be alarmed if you have more than what I've got. This is just a test system, so don't worry about that right now. I have obviously overtyped that when I was running through this yesterday, so bear with me. Okay, so yeah, you've got your service package list. We can see here that we've got the checklist template codes as well. So that's what I mentioned earlier, where you can link it to a checklist, and that will then automatically add these checklists when we add these service packages. You can also add a couple of different fields, so you can personalize in these fields to make it easier sometimes to see, for example, what you have enabled for online booking. So sometimes there may be some useful fields that you just haven't personalized in yet. I always like to have this tick box in just because it lets me see, especially when looking at your guys' systems to kind of investigate things, what's turned on, what's not. So you've got different types. If we have a look at the brake fluid change, for example, a very simple package. One version here, there's not really much to go off in terms of a brake fluid change. A brake fluid change is a brake fluid change. And you have that in the system, single version, you know, not much to go off there. However, if we go into something like a full service, you will see we have multiple versions within the package at multiple different price points, depending on engine capacity and also what looks like fuel type. We'll go into all these different conditions and settings and things like that, but you can obviously, there are some that you want to keep quite simple, and there are some that you want to have a bit more complication too. So for example, your full service, you want to offer at different price points because different things may be involved, if it's diesel or petrol, or if it's a larger engine vehicle, all those different things. So let's just have a look at this page itself to go through what's included on a service package. So you always have a number and a description on every record basically in Garage Hive. You then have extended descriptions and sales extended descriptions. You'll also notice there is OB extended descriptions here as well. This is because they're made for different purposes. So an extended description would be an explanation of the work that's been carried out on that vehicle when this package was done. It's more of a, this is what we did to your vehicle and what to understand about that. The sales extended description, this is used when adding this package to an estimate, so that you can kind of be a bit more salesy in terms of what you want to say to the customer and what they may see on the printout that you give them. This will kind of explain what's going to happen, as you know, just like the work that's carried out, you know, what work we're going to carry out. But you can add a few more caveats to this, where if it's a diesel vehicle, you might need to think about a fuel filter. If it's, you know, spark plugs are not included, but they may be due, you know, those things where you can explain beforehand that if we suddenly add spark plugs to the estimate or spark plugs to your job sheet, this may be why, rather than it being like, well, you never said that before. So it just gives you that ability to kind of pre-warn anything, or just to give them that heads up of these are the things to expect from if you come to us for this service. And then the extended description for online booking, this is basically what you want to show up on the online booking page itself. If they click, I want more info about this package. It may be very similar to your sales extended description. They're probably not going to be too far off, but you can make them different if you need to. You then have group codes. This is purely for reporting. You've got the checklist template code, like we spoke about earlier. You've got compressed document lines. So some of you may already use this, but what I do find sometimes people will call on support and they're printed out and they can't figure out why they can't see any of the items or labels to do with this full service. It's probably because this slider is turned on. This slider being turned on basically just means it's going to say full service, £360. So it's going to just compress all of that into one line that says you had a full service and it cost you this much. Some people like to keep that nice and simple. Some people want to expand out and show what was involved in that. And it's just a case of turning that on or off, depending on how you want to display that. You then have main description. This is a very simple option here, but it can do and make quite big changes to how things are added to a job sheet or an estimate when you add this package on. This is currently set to package version, okay? And as we can see down here, these are the versions. So what it will do is take the details, such as the extended description, sales extended description, from the versions themselves, rather than taking them from the header, which is the other option. So the header of a document is up here, the versions is down here. So it just depends on whether you want to say different things in your descriptions per version, or whether you just want to have a overall description that you want to include. If you have it set to version, you're expecting to see this, then that's not going to happen. What you may also do with, if you want to use versions as well, is again personalizing some of the extra fields that you want to see. So you've got all the descriptions that are kind of currently hidden because most people use the header, but if you do want to use the versions, they are under personalize. Okay. You can assign a default action category. So this is purely for online auth. So if I add this, what do I want it to be under? Do I want it to be an MOT failure, advisories, additional work? You can create your own in here, but I would recommend not creating too many, just because it basically gets confusing. If you've got too many, you don't know what to put anything under. And then what we were talking about earlier about estimates and service packages for online booking, you've got the slider here. This will essentially turn it on to being an estimate rather than a package that's bookable, and it changes the way that it's displayed on the online booking page. If you're not using this, if you want to use a combination of both, you know, let them book a full service and let them quote, you know, they can pick from online booking. If you did want to have both, you would need 2 separate service packages for that. Okay, you've then got the online booking section down here. I don't want to kind of delve too much into the detail of setting up an online booking, but this is kind of where you would control if it's turned on, where it sits in the list of online booking packages on the page, what kind of icon you use, descriptions, how it books. Also, there's some sliders that control whether you want to show the price or the timings that a customer can choose from. So with online booking, you can have dedicated time slots. So I can book 10:30. I come in at 10:30. I have my car done at 10:30 and I leave after it's done. Or you may turn on morning drop off, and what that will then do is just suggest bring it in the morning, leave it with us, and we'll ring you when it's done. So you've got that option depending on that as well. If anybody is interested in setting up online booking, we are happy to have set up kind of a call with you guys and just explain all the things that you need to think about, go away and make decisions on. We'll try not to kind of tangent off into online booking too much, but obviously packages are a strong point of how things are displayed within there. So it's hard not to talk about online booking in some capacity today. And then the last thing within the online booking section is the only as an additional package. So for example, you don't want people to just be able to choose that package by itself. It has to come with something else. So a good example of this would be a courtesy car. You don't want people to just book a courtesy car. You know what they're going to do? To show up to the garage, get a new courtesy car, drive around for a bit. You know, you want them to have to book a service, and then they can have the courtesy car option once they've selected that. They can't just select it by itself. So you can have a package set to only as additional, and then yeah, it will display a certain way. And then just before we move into versions and conditions and all of that stuff, what I will do is just show you the online booking kind of page and how it looks. So when you go in and pop in your reg on online booking, this is the way that those service package display. Ignore this is a test page, so it's not going to match up to what we've just seen. But if you look at, for example, the full service, if I click more info, you then get the description, expected time. If you want to display it, you can turn that off. So that's kind of how it translates from Garage Hive to how it will display on your online booking page as well, to just give you an idea of how that looks once everything's published. But yeah, if anybody is interested in setting up online booking or going forward with that, or just tweaking their online booking, do drop us a message and we'll be happy to kind of go through the steps that are required for that. Okay. So moving on to the versions and conditions and everything that you can set up here. So like you can see, you can have multiple versions of a package. You can create copies of versions, and you can also copy from. So if I want to copy this, I can click copy. It will copy the selected version and pop it on under the one that I already had. So that will just make a direct copy, and then I can tweak from there. If it's mostly the same, that's going to be the easiest way rather than creating over and over and over again. So you've got the ability to just copy. If, for example, I am wanting to copy something from a different package rather than just an existing version line, if I go onto a blank line and use copy from, what that will then do is allow me to select any version from any other package that I have in my system. So, you know, if I really wanted to, I could put an AC diag in as a version on the full service. Not sure why you would do that, but just as an example of you can pull anything wherever you want to put it. Okay, so that will be a really quick and easy way to create another version, but just slightly tweak something to make it different from the rest, because that's why we're creating a different version. You've got kind of the simple conditions here. So your age and production year, engine capacity, gross weight, length from and to, all very simple conditions that we've got here. The only thing I would recommend and kind of advice I would give with this is if you are doing, like you see here, from 0 to 1600, when you do the next layer of that, so 1601 to 2000, try not to do this, where you have it 0 to 1600 and then 1600 to 2000, because then you'll have cars that fall into both, and there's a chance that they would then be offered maybe a lesser package than is needed. Always do one up from where you left off. Okay, and that's the same with age, production year. You know, don't do from 1 to 4 years and then 4 to 10 years, you know, or things like that. Do from 5, just so that you've got a nice carry on and you've not got two packages being suggested. The goal with service packages is going to be to have one version of this package that applies to the vehicle that we're looking up. You know, if I put my car in, it should fit into one of these. It shouldn't fit into multiple, because then with the automation, it should just do everything for you. Obviously, there may be times where two things can be true and there may be two offerings, but you know, ideally, especially in kind of the servicing side of things in the example that we're looking at, we want to make sure that only one of these things is true at a time. Okay. You then have the kind of more complex conditions. So this is where you can add makes, models, vehicle types, fuel types, customer categories, transmission, engine model codes, and then primary makes and models. We will come back to primary makes in a second. I do want to speak about that a little bit, just because I know more and more people are using them. But as you can see, this is targeted at a diesel car. So fuel type equals diesel, or diesel electric, or electric diesel, or, you know, it has to fall into each of, or one of these categories to apply. If I then go and add that I want to only offer this certain service to Seats, then that suddenly has to be a diesel Seat. Now that's in there, it can't fall outside of the scope of the conditions that we have. So you've got the ability to kind of make them very, very specific. If you are starting out on using conditions, I would recommend trying to be as open as possible with your options, and then narrowing things down as you find that you need to, rather than going really, really specific and then finding that you don't have any packages to offer anyone because everything's just too specific. You also have subcode. I do get this question a lot of how to format, you know, what's code and what's subcode. It's mainly for when you're using models. So if I was to want to filter down to models, I could do model, SEAT, and then subcode will need to be the model itself. So you would do, I want to filter to model, but code has to be make, then subcode has to be model. So you basically, if you are filtering to models, you have to format it this way. You can't put, you know, Leon in this. It just won't work. You then have begins with and exclude. Exclude, pretty self-explanatory. I mean, begins with as well. Pretty self-explanatory with both of these. You know, for example, engine model code. If we want to include ABC 1, ABC 2, ABC 3 without having to put ABC 1, next line, ABC 2, next line, you know, without having to do all of that, what I can do is do ABC, tick begins with, and now anything that begins with those three letters, it will incorporate all of those. So it's just a way of incorporating a lot more without having to add every single option and having thousands of lines in here. And then, yeah, with the exclude, practically the same thing. If, you know, this was a petrol version, I can add the diesels in and then just exclude them all. And then suddenly now this is a petrol package rather than a diesel package. So you can use exclude in that way there. And then, but yeah, I mean, the rest of them are pretty, you know, self-explanatory. Is I want to filter transmission, select what kind of transmission you want to link to. If you want to include more than one, you will have to select manual, and then I would have to go in again and select automatic. Once you include one of them, it then excludes the rest. So just to kind of point that out. So let's talk a little bit about primary makes and primary models. So primary makes and models are a way of organizing your makes and models into a simplified way so that you don't have to filter to unnecessary makes that you've already essentially filtered to. And what I mean by that is if I go into my make list where all the makes and makes of cars are, I would recommend going through and spending some time going through and making your primary makes, the ones you want to or you use most, your primary make. So for example, as we can see right here, we've got Renault and then we've got Renault trucks. Do I want to put them under the same category? Maybe, maybe not. And we can treat those as two individual makes. But for example, Mercedes, 99% of the time, these are going to be tracked the same. Mercedes and Mercedes-Benz. Forget about models right now. If I want to include Mercedes in a service package, I want to include Mercedes and Mercedes-Benz in that. But without having to do make Mercedes, make Mercedes-Benz, make Mercedes -Benz, space Benz, make Merc, all those different things that you can find in your system. What you can do is you pick one, so Mercedes, make that my primary make, and then under related you have the primary make conditions, and you basically say everything that begins with Merc falls under this primary make. So on a service package, I can just do primary make Mercedes, and then if a car is a Mercedes-Benz, it will know to include that in that package because it's part of that primary make. So it's a way for these ones where you've got multiple versions, exactly the same with Volkswagen. You might have Volkswagen, you might have VW. In that scenario, I'd recommend using VW as your primary make, and then just by saying everything that begins with Volks or Volk, and then everything's included. You find the same a lot of the time with Land Rover as well. Land Rover, all one word, Land Space Rover. Sometimes they are down as Range Rovers for whatever reason. You have those different makes that have those just slight anomalies that we kind of all need to categorize together. And then you basically have the same thing with models as well. So a Seat Leon, for example, you have Leon, Leon FR, Leon S, Leon SE, all these different versions of a Leon. If I set Leon as the primary model and set everything that begins with Leon to be included, then on my package, I can just say, I want to include Seat Leons, and everything that is incorporated into the primary model is then included. So without having to spend all my time filtering to every single model, I can just do it in one. Again, if you guys want to go through any of this, primary makes, or you want some advice on how you set something up, please feel free to get in touch with support, and we'll be happy to kind of explain any of that in more detail for your scenarios and your setup. Okay, so you've got all of that. There is a tick box here for online booking prices from. So we did mention up here, you've got the online booking price where you can hide it. It just says TBC. If you did want to say prices are from 360, you can do that as well. So just a little side note in there. And then moving on to the version line. So everything that makes up a package itself with the labor and items. Within this package example, this is a fixed price package. Okay, so the way that this has been set up is you've got your labor, you've got all your items that would be included, and then you have a fixed price service line at the bottom here. And that line is purely there to make the price up to what you want it to be. Okay, so regardless of how you're setting this up, your labor always wants to be true to what it is. So if a full service is 2 hours and your labour rate is £60 an hour, you want to put 2 hours at 60 to get yourself to a price. If you want to include your environmental disposal charge separately, individually priced, if you want to track that, Power BI wise, then pop the price on that. If you know what price that's always going to be and that will never change, good, put that against that. And then your fixed price service item is basically adding up the rest to get you to your desired price. You can spend the time divvying up the prices between these and doing that, but they're never going to really be accurate as to how much it costs, because you're trying to make £175.84 made up between these items here. So you're kind of just making up money anyway. You may as well just stick it all on this item and then report on how much all your service items cost you. You would still have the cost price of these items. What it just wouldn't do is mark them up and create kind of a individualized price. If you weren't using fixed pricing, and that's this slider down here is what controls that. And I'm just going to go into an example where it's not fixed price. In this system, it's basically set up that if it's over a 3-litre car, then it's not fixed price anymore. So you may want to adopt that same method. It's fixed price until you've got some ridiculous engine, and then I don't want to know. We're just going to quote you a price. You see it's exactly the same. There's just no fixed price item at the bottom. So when I put this on a job and I start quoting for my oil filter and air filter and fuel filter and pollen filter, it will then mark those up based on how much they cost and create a price for me. But yeah, obviously you just need to be aware of what you are fixing and what you're not fixing, especially if you are not your front of house, letting those guys know as well when they need to be quoting, rather than just relying on the price of the package itself. You may not want to use any non-fixed priced, so you can still fix it. You might just have it at an even higher price, but obviously it's completely up to you. But yes, the setup of it is down to the item lines and how you set that up here. Then you've also got this slider that needs to be turned on. If you are expecting to use the package price and this slider is not on, then it will use the prices from the item cards or the markups if you have them set. So if you have set up a bunch of packages and they're doing weird and wonderful things price wise, I would just double check that this slider is not turned off or turned on, depending on what you're trying to achieve. And just a last thing to note on this item section is this tick box here. This would be mainly used for things like oil and maybe aircon gas, things that are not known until you fill it up, basically. I don't know how many litres of oil, or I don't know how many grams of gas I'm going to use until I, pour it in the machine. So this tick box allows you to set a price at which you want to achieve for that item. So if I did say I want it to be £10 for the oil, then if I set that to 1 litre or I set it to 5 litres, then it will adjust this unit price to get us to an end goal price. And I'll show you that later on, just because it's a little hard to explain that tick box without showing you, but we'll come back to it. But this is, when I explain that later on, this is the tick box that controls that. Okay. So, and then at the bottom, you've got your predefined comments that we mentioned earlier. You can set those here, set them to attention, set them to print, add to estimates, job sheets, VIE, so you can choose what type of document it adds to, add different things to different types. You've got all those options down at the bottom there. So that is your page, a very long-winded way of explaining the page and everything that goes into creating or adjusting or tweaking the setup of a service package. It will probably take you a lot less time to do it than it would be to explain it. But now you know what all the fields do. So let's now have a look at the application of those service packages when it comes to job sheets. Okay, so most of you, if not all of you, are going into the schedule. You are dragging some time on a bay, and you are selecting a package from this list. This list is controlled by a menu called Service Schedule New Allocation Menu. I know it's catchy, but this menu here is essentially those options. And the workgroup codes will pretty much relate to the bay that they're talking about. So general bookings, diag, MOTs, service and MOTs, the tech lines, tire bay, whatever it is you have on your system. But in here, what you can essentially do is service, oil service, interim, full, manufacturers, and they then link to the service type. The service type is what is set as kind of the header to your job. And within the service types, you will link a service package. And then to even go a step further, if you do have checklists linked to your service packages, that then will add the checklist. You can also add checklists from service types, but we'll not cover that today. So essentially, it's all layered and it's a domino effect from the first menu through to the last of it automating and creating all the things you want it to add. Okay, so in here you will see, let's take the full service as we've been using that. If I pick a full service on the previous menu, it will add a full service type. Then it will add full service non-fixed price, or full service EV. And like I said earlier, you should have one version that matches the car in question, which means that even though we have 3 service packages for full service, only one package should apply, depending on whether it's an electric car, whether it's over 3 litres, or whether it's under that and falls into the multiple versions of the full service categories. Okay, so if we have a look at how that creates, so drag some time, select a full service, click OK, and then we pop a registration in. I'm just going to select one from the list, so to take this one. Now we know that it's full service, what vehicle we're talking about, and obviously the packages can relate to customer category, so the customer does need to be added as well. We have a full service petrol added. If we look in the back box, the car is a petrol. It's 1198. So that falls into kind of the lowest package of items that we had, giving us that packet added automatically, and also the checklist has been added automatically along with it. So because we've got all of those things layered in, it's added the relevant service package for what we needed. We can go look up and service packages and pick it from a list. Again, this will only show you the versions that apply to that vehicle. So if you have created a package and you go into this list and it's not there, there is something that is not correct with your conditions. Either your engine capacity is out slightly, or you've put something in the from box and it should be in the to box, or something as little as that. Just double check all your settings, but you should get one of every version that applies. Okay. if we have a look at what we can do in terms of creating a package from a job sheet. Okay, so let's clear out of our minds that a full service package already exists and you keep creating them manually over and over again. And this can apply to whatever situation you're in, but I've created this so many times. Surely we could just have this as a package. Instead of me having to go and create it as a package, what I can then do is I can go to functions against the group. So you've got the group items here. If I go to functions against that, and you may in your system need to click more options before you get functions, but in there you have create service package version. And what that will allow you to do is add that group of items into a service package version and create that ready so that you can just add it into a job next time through a service package. So instead of having to create it and then add it to the job, you could just create it on the job and then create the service package from there. Okay, the only thing you do need with that is you need the creation of the package first. It will then create the version for you, which is kind of the most important bit. So yeah, and you can just create kind of a package called ad hoc, and you create a service package version and you stick all of the things that you do in there into ad hoc, you know. So you would just need to make sure that your main description is set to version in that example. But it's a good way to just chuck stuff in there for later use. So you can create them from the job backwards. There are a few different things you can from a group. If I just go in here and I was like breaks, I create a new group called breaks, and then I decided I wanted to take a package to use for that. I can go look up service package, and then I don't have any for breaks, so I'll just click the break fluid change. That will then replace the manual group I created with the package that I selected. So it's always a good thing if somebody's like, oh, I need my brake fluid doing and I need this and I need that. And you can just be like, okay, yep. So you want brakes, you want 2 new tires, you want this, that, and the other. And you can just say, right, yeah, leave that with me. Let me price that up for you. And you can then go, right. So for them, brakes would be this. And for 2 new tires, your tires would be this. You can do that on estimates as well, same functionality. But yeah, you've got the lookup, and you can use repair times and interval matrix as well from there, but service package is obviously what we're focusing on today. So yeah, you can create packages, replace groups, whatever you need to do. One little tip from here as well is some people will be like, I just want to know how much that group costs. Like how much is the full service, or how much is the brake fluid change by itself? If you click on the group description against the lines, so not from up here, but the lines up here, it will prompt you to basically add that line into a group. But what it gives you is the amount including VAT for each of those groups. So if somebody does say, how much was their service by itself? You can just click on one of the group descriptions and go, oh, it's 336. Simple, nice and easy. So that allows you to just nice and easily pick that up and give them that information. So yeah, that's kind of creating it on the job sheet. You also, and I'm just going to use a different job for showing you this. You have the ability to add service packages through a checklist itself. Okay, and this is going to be more for when you're quoting and making that road easier. But let's kind of go into a scenario of we've got a checklist here. It's been completed and filled out. Okay, and the tech has used, and this is the important part, is the techs need to be using text templates for this to work. Okay, if they're just typing in here, it's not going to work. But if you are a tech and you click on the three dots and I look up the text template for my brake fluid and I pick the option from here, you will notice there is a service package filter option here. I've added it to everything just as a fail-safe in case I select the wrong one. But you would obviously have that against, we want to add a service package if it's, you know, failing or close to. So you would add that on so that when they select the options where we would then quote them for that, it will add that text in there just as the tech would expect. They don't see anything different. And then when I go to create a VIE, what that will then do is, if we go down to the group items, so you will always start off with nothing, but you can do prepare and then add checklist attention lines. What that will do is add service packages for the lines that do have packages against them. So our brake fluid change, antifreeze change, and the tyre replacement. Okay, each of those had linked service packages to the text templates that were selected. You will also get stuff that may not be linked in. So wheel alignment, for example, that wasn't linked in with a service package. We did say we wanted wheel alignment. It was orange, but we didn't leave a comment. It just needs wheel alignment, or we advise wheel alignment. If that's the case, again, we can just use our functions, lookup service package and select wheel alignment, you know, from there. And that would then replace it with carry out wheel alignment, adds the package on there for us. We just have to add that in manually. So there may be some times where it's automated. There may also be other times where it's not, and you just need to add them in. But using our new way of knowing that that package is there for me to choose from, I could just go look up and replace the existing line with the new ones. Sometimes you'll get stuff that you don't need, and again, you just delete that off. Like I mentioned with some of the new features as well, the media count, if I added a service package that I'd linked media to, we would be able to click on that and see images or documents in there as well. So you would see that all linked back through. So it all comes full circle with service packages. It's all, you set them up, they add, everything pulls through, you know, it all runs in one big circle. Okay. So yeah, and then you've got that quote ready to go to give back to the customer. And you know, all the normal other stuff that you would do with that. The only time I would recommend not using a service package, other than, you know, kind of, sorry, that's not what I meant to say. The only time I wouldn't recommend using a service package is when you've got something like one of these checklists and the whole thing is pretty much just lighting up. You know, you've got reds basically every other one, or, you know, something that comes up that is more than just you being able to say, oh yeah, that's a brake fluid change, or oh yeah, that's just your antifreeze, or oh, you just need a tire replacement. You know, let's say there's something in there that's had a whole write-up, it's spent, you know, a whole day in the garage, or things like that, and it just needs you to put together something that requires a bit more care and attention maybe than sticking a tire replacement on. That would be the only time I really would recommend not using a service package, is just when that work is going to be so specific that you just need to build it yourself. Because what you don't want to do is assume that it's there and then it's not, and miss something and have a bad experience for your customer. So every other opportunity, I would be using a service package at least as your base. You know, you can have these service packages with, they can be for the most part, this is everything. and then you kind of build out extras on top of that. But for things like servicing, MOTs, tires, is a really easy way to just a click of a button. It's on your job. It's priced up for them, for the most part. Obviously, tires are a little bit different because you may not know what kind of tire they're going to go for. You've got budgets, you've got mid-range, you've got premiums, but it's easy stuff to just get the bulk of the work done and get it out of the workshop. So yeah, I think unless I have missed something glaringly obvious, that is pretty much it for the kind of run through portion of the system. What we will do now is stop the recording from here, and we will then open it up to any questions.